let's talk about why self-work is really vital and super important. I was working with somebody the other day who really thought in this particular area there was nothing to work on, and it was about money blocks. And I said, well, what is your general feeling about money? And what is your general thought about it? And he said, I feel good about money. I feel like the more money you have, the more that you can do. And I was like, whoa, because I know this person, and that is a great belief to the universe, and a great signal to the universe, and a great subconscious belief if you believe that you are a person who has more and can do more with it. So I know this person. I was like, whoa, there's a dissonance in the signal that you're giving off to the universe, which is, oh, money's great because the more you have, the more you can do, but I'm not a person who can have that. So there's a veiled consciousness between, even though I feel great about money, or I think good thoughts about it, my belief is still that I'm separated from it somehow, and that creates dissonance to what we attract, right? So this person who didn't believe that there was any work to do in this area, which, you know, you don't have to go any deeper than that if you don't want to, but it just shows us that the subconscious mind is always running the show. And if we cannot weed out the programming that our subconscious mind is operating on, we're always going to attract from that place. And if you were brought up with a program that was, you cannot have more, you should feel guilty if you're taking up space, all of the, you know, the typical codependent empath program, if you were raised on that, or if you were raised on any kind of program in modern culture, right? Like any social program is pretty insane these days. So if you are running on their program and not your soul's purpose, which most of us are running on their program, not our soul's purpose, it's because we haven't gone in and actually dug into the subconscious to see what our patterns are. So it's vital that we do that, because once we know what our patterns are, we become distant enough to shift the pattern, right? To see ourselves in the pattern, transform the pattern into a shape that we actually like. And it's only from actually seeing the pattern that we become distant enough, right? We become distant, we see it, and then we can transform it. So self-work doesn't just happen on its own. Yes, life might kick you right in the ass and you might gain a whole bunch of wisdom in an unexpected event, but normally it's going to be a trauma that you attract because you need to learn the lesson, or something of the sort. But self-work makes it so that you can start at the place where normal people start from, right? Like, we might not have been the people that got our needs met and got everything given to us when we needed it. We didn't have people who coddled us in the beginning, right? But when you do the self-work to reparent yourself, and then you learn to coddle yourself, and you start at baseline normal, that's when true creation happens. I had a client the other day who said, well, what happens now? I've created everything that I want. What happens now? And I was like, oh, but here's just the beginning. This is where normal people who've always felt that they had enough to have their needs met, to move forward, to take initiative, somebody was going to have their back. This is where they start from, right? So self-work brings you to your program. And when you are in your soul's purpose instead of their program, that's when you create amazing things, right? So self-work is super important. And we're not, as much as we can do it on our own, which is like totally possible. I mean, you can lay with therapeutic grade essential oils and feel the movements, especially if you're a healer, right? Like, you can do self-work on your own. But I also want to talk about how much support is underrated. If you are an empath and you are having experiences that cannot be explained by science, or it cannot be explained by or understood by the people around you, right? So I'm going to give you an example of my own life. Recently, I was doing some meditative work, and I kind of skipped places in consciousness, and I actually went all the way back to where this particular block came from in me. And it was when my mom manifested or demonstrated or created. She actually got what she wanted. She got a new car, and she got the car of her dreams, and she was 19, and she does not, in our family, you are not like showy, right? You didn't, like, what do you think, you're cool? You got that piece of shit you got to pay for. You can't even pay your own bills, but you're like buying this car for who you bought, you know, all of that. but she wanted it and she manifested it and she got shit for it, right? So I'm in my mom's 19-year-old consciousness going, okay, this is where this started. I understand this. And I'm trying to actually like share this. And I'm realizing, whoa, right? Like this person thinks that I'm being deep and this is just what my experience is. This is not even me dipping my toes in. This is just what's real for me, right? And somebody else outside of myself could say that's absolutely insane. This bitch is nuts, right? Which may or may not be true. I'm functional, which is awesome. So that me that was aware, like, whoa, this person actually cannot understand. And I always want to kind of be like, oh, I want like everybody to understand, because if they understood, then they'd stop hurting each other. And if they understood, yada, yada, yada. And I think that it's imperative that we go to people who understand, right? And this is an interesting thing that came up today, actually, in my practice. If you are an empath, and you are living with a cluster B personality, so say that you are living with a borderline, you are living with a narcissist, you are living with somebody on the cluster B, spectrum there, you're going to get sick. You're going to feel constantly fatigued and like the life is sucked out of you, right? And you're going to start to manifest the flip-flop of their program, right? The opposite polar end of their program, because that's all you know how to do to keep the system sane and safe for both people. And because you're an empath and you love them, that's what you want to do. And that gets really exhausting really quick and leads to an early death and a very late life. So we can literally be made to feel like we're crazy. And it's really important to get support from somebody who gets that your physiology is just different than other people's. And what the places that you can go in your consciousness and your territory might be you like dipping your toes in when somebody else goes, whoa, that's really deep. And you're like, that's not what I'm doing here. I'm still above water, right? To have people hold spaces for us in those ways who can say like, yes, I know what it's like to have the insane headache and then get the call from the client and the headache is not even mine. I know what it's like to feel constantly fatigued because I'm picking up on all of the shame that this person should be feeling but is unwilling to like embody in themselves. So they're projecting it out there, because I am the human filter. I am filtering it out. And then if you get stuck in that program, which is the danger of being an empath with somebody, it's one thing if you're an empath in the world, right? But if you're an empath, especially raised, and that's typically my demographic, by somebody who's a cluster B, there's nowhere to turn. So you literally had to be insane just to keep the system safe for yourself, right? And then to get out of that, you kind of need somebody to walk you through okay, I'm allowed to be reborn into my own program, and I'm allowed to individuate on my time, instead of, a lot of, especially if you have borderline mothers, they're going to kick you out probably before you're ready, and then they're going to pull you back in when you don't need to be pulled in. So there has to be an individuation process where we go, oh, that's my program. There's the willful little shit that's in me, because the truth is, like, as a kid, like, yeah, there's a willful little shit in me, right? I'm allowed to represent her. I'm allowed to protect her. I'm allowed to have her back, right? So self-work is important, but getting support on the journey is so, so important. It's really, I think a lot of us, we go, I'm not worth it is one thing, but really it's not going to be worth it. Like, is it really worth the money? Is it really worth the time? And in my experience, oh my God, yes. And I went to the guy, if you have not seen the documentary, The Root Cause, please watch it. I watched it and was like up all night going through like who lives closest to me, because I'm going to one of these doctors. And of course I found one pretty close to me, and I went to him, and he just tweaked about 10 seconds of manipulation of my cranium, and the pressure in my whole head is different. And I walked out of there going, oh, I wanted more information. I felt like it was going to be different. I paid a lot of money for him to like touch me for a split second. And my God, whatever he did in that split second, the energy moved. And it was super, super worth it. So a lot of times we have the idea not only like I'm not worth it, that the person isn't, this healer isn't worth it, or it's not worth it, whatever they're doing isn't worth it. And in my experience, we have to make it worth it to us, right? Like I could have been a different person who walked out of there like, no way, I can't believe that just happened. But because I was willing to receive that I thought it was worth it, that's why I made the trek there. And I left with the whatever that is, I trust that was exactly what I was to receive. We have to make it worth it. We can't go into self-work with the idea that we have to fix ourselves, because here's the thing, ready? And this is the journey that you're going to go on if you are an empath, especially if you're raised by somebody in cluster B and you're an empath with them. You don't, and maybe also just meeting somebody like that later in life, you don't know you're in it when you're in it. And nobody on the outside can validate that you're in it because it looks kind of probably normal, right? And then when you realize you're in it and you're like, whoa, like I'm not insane. Actually, there's labels for this. It's called narcissistic abuse, and which I would call narcissistic confusion rather than abuse, because they are incredibly confusing and equally confused. That whole journey is going to look like you being a fish in water, not knowing. Then you jump out of the water as the fish, and you're like, fuck, I can't breathe. And you're going, oh, I need to look for the person who made it me not be able to breathe, right? Like, who could have done this to me? Like, what mind is insane enough to be that person, right? What mind is insane enough to be that person? And we get on the track of trying to figure out them. And then when we get real smart, because we realize actually the truth is, if we're empaths and we can empath with them, we really get the nonsensical nature of this dis-ease that they're at, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. There's never going to be a target that we can touch with confidence that says, oh yes, this is the thing that's going to please them. That's never going to exist, right? Not when we're in this space, actually. In the space where we think that they have to change. And my truth is, I 100% believe that people can change, and people will change, and people do change, but only when you change. I believe transformation is possible for all people. I believe it's a very big pain in the ass, and I believe that most people are unwilling to swallow what they have to swallow to do it. But I believe it's possible if they're willing, if that willful little person in them that actually remembers why they came to the planet in the first place wants to come alive. I believe it's possible for people to change, but I believe it's possible only when you change, only when we change, because our mirror is a reflection of what's going on inside of us. And when we change, the whole mirror changes. The people who used to show up one way show up differently, not because you told them to even, but because energetically you change. It's your mirror, right? So, getting support in the mirror to have somebody reflect you, like, actually, like, this is a stable reflection in the mirror. Like, this is what I see is super important. So get yourself support, make it worth it to you. I'm going to plug BetterHelp in here because I can, and that's something that actually worked for me. They came at me with a scholarship opportunity a long time ago. Scholarship, I guess, is what you would call it, a sponsorship opportunity. And they gave me free sessions, and it was really useful to me, and I actually stayed on. So I have a very long wait list, but I just want to say it's so much nicer to have somebody when I am energetically in my realm all over the place, to have just one person, because so I'm kind of a braid of many things when it comes to like shamanism or energetic medicine and psychotherapy and chakra therapy and like an on the ground kind of rooted person. Traditional psychotherapy sometimes for the empath is awesome to get an on the ground perspective. And it's funny because like I don't necessarily abide by like traditional psychotherapeutic like models as far as agencies and whatnot are concerned, but I do think that if you have somebody in your life to show you support, offer you support, whether you're paying for it or whether you're not paying for it, to make it worth it to you. Like, instead of being like, oh, this person's trying to be supportive for me, but I don't like the way they're supporting me, make it worth it to you to receive their support. Like, make it be that actually the universe knows exactly what it's doing. And if somebody's trying to support you, they don't even have to know more than you. They don't have to have an answer that you don't have, right? They just have to show you that they're with you while you're in hell and see you in wholeness instead of in all of your broken bits, or they're with you in heaven instead of seeing you as like somebody who can not, never fall. They see you in your wholeness just wherever you are. So support is so freaking underrated. So get it for yourself. And I have somebody that I work with who's also taking my online course, and she's bringing all of these aha moments to me. So if you are looking for support in a self-orienting kind of way, check out my e-course, Soul Centering After Toxic Shame. That might be a support for you, but in whatever way you get support, my friend, know that what you think is a luxury, if you are an empath, might actually be a necessity. And if you don't want to burn out and you want to actually be the person on the planet that you came here to be, and like do it with longevity and grace instead of like fragility and constantly having to hide because your nervous system is shot, get support. Get support. You deserve it. The world deserves for you to have it because the world needs you, right? The world needs us. All right. Bye.